Welcome to 2025. This is our year ahead video. My name's Timothy Halloran. I am an evolutionary astrologer, and we're going to be discussing not only what we're collectively experiencing as a species this forthcoming year of 2025, we're going to understand why for our species' own evolutionary intentions. This is what evolutionary astrology bestows. You can learn how to do everything I do yourself at my astrology school at rasalilacommunity.com. There is a go at your own pace, teach yourself online school for a monthly subscription. I also offer Q&As that's included in the astrology school. That is to make this wisdom approachable. So you can do everything that I am doing here and now. You can double check it. This is all validation. And the proof is in the pudding when it comes to astrology. So let's jump into our year of 2025 because we're going to take a look at not only this forthcoming year, we're going to put it into the grander scheme of things. Bird's eye view. We're talking about the years, decades, plural, to come. And so as we can see on the left side of the screen, this is our current moment in time. Let's get us caught up to the exact moment, okay? Now, 2025 begins and ends in an extraordinarily exciting way. There's no way we cannot be sensing the excitement as well as probably a huge amount of uncertainty because we're all getting introduced to this little fella right here. Pluto in Aquarius, where he will remain for the next 2 decades. So where to begin with? Let's start with where we find ourselves at the beginning of 2025 and to summarize a bit of this last year of 2024. I titled 2024, The Year a Divine Spark Sets Your Soul on Fire. Now that wasn't, believe it or not, meant to be literal. That was metaphorical for what may not have been the most painless year we've ever lived, 2024. Oh my goodness, the solar eclipse in April of 2024, that's one of the most exact total solar eclipses we're going to have for quite a while. There are no total solar eclipses in 2025. And that solar eclipse with Chiron in 2024, that was a major initiation for quite a few souls. So 2025 is going to begin with the North Node's completion of Aries, because the moon's nodes are the only planetary objects we're really concerned with as astrologers. The moon's nodes are simply the points where the moon's orbit conjoins the path of the ecliptic. And the ecliptic is all important, as we're going to discuss in this video. This is the tropical zodiac. In astrology, we're studying cycles. That's this circle is everything. And if you do this, we've got a sine wave is everything. The difference between this and this is merely a matter of perspective, but that is the zodiac, determined by solstices and equinoxes as opposed to the positioning of any stars or constellations. So don't be confused when you see for the millionth time in a row the news article about how the constellations have changed, so your zodiac sign has changed. No, that's not how astrology works. The zodiac is based off of equinoxes and solstices. That's the annual movement of the sun over the face of the earth called the ecliptic. That is the zodiac. That's what determines this point here. The Aries point is where the sun is on the spring equinox, northern hemisphere, every single year. Now this point, the Aries point, is where a ton of action is taking place this next year. I'm going to start fast forwarding month by month. And as you can see, we're going to see Saturn and Neptune basically join together all of this next year, going back and forth over the Aries point, going back throughout the entirety of 2025. So I got to be honest, 2025 is actually really straightforward astrology. And this is also evolutionary astrology. This is all astrology, but particularly evolutionary astrology is really the branch of astrology that takes the understanding of the moon's nodes to the nth degree. And as far as I understand, this is the realest, most accurate soul-level astrology that there is. You learn my astrology school if you're interested in past lifetimes and healing your soul's samskaras. So the moon's nodes, whether in our own birth chart by house, sign, planetary ruler, or as we're looking at this chart at this particular moment in time, the transiting moon's nodes reflects the collective evolutionary intention for our whole species at any moment in time. So this is a very, very exciting moment. Why? Because the North Node's been transiting Aries the last 18 months. And what has, therefore, been the collective evolutionary intention? This is what many of us have worked so hard for, and where many of us may really have this sense of momentum now taking us forward. This is also why I titled 2024 the Year a Divine Spark Sets Our Soul on Fire. Aries has so much to do with individuation. Seeking the open road so to discover what it is we desire on the individual level. And that's important for every soul to explore and discover for themselves because we're here to be individuals. From that movie, The Life of Brian, Monty Python, there's this famous scene. Why are you following me? You're all individuals. Well, that's the age we're getting to, coming out of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. Astrology is going to revolutionize everything, and we're going to understand every person, believe it or not. I know this is hard to believe. Every person's living a different experience. Every person's living a different life. And again, you can learn EA to understand what and why is your experience. What and why is every experience that you have throughout your life? Yes, we can understand this to a very poignant degree using evolutionary astrology. So to come back to the moon's nodes, this is almost the spinal column of our soul's evolution. This is what we're using to learn, grow, and evolve. There's a natural tension between the past and the future that is reflected in the moon's nodes. And every soul is using this tension to learn, grow, and evolve. So again, you look at any person's birth chart, the moon's nodes by house and sign, not sun, moon, ascendant. That's amateur astrology. Look at the moon's nodes by house, sign, and planetary ruler. So for example, in this moment in time, the planetary ruler of the moon's north node in Aries is Mars. Last 18 months. Has been ruled by Mars. So again, this has been where we've had to apply a conscious effort. We've had to work to individuate. We've had to separate. We've had to, Mars, defend and protect our autonomy. And this is to retrieve the phantom limb of where we could have outsourced or overly given or overly conformed to the south node in Libra's danger, which is only a potential, but the potential danger here is getting lost in likability, getting lost in the wrapping paper, getting lost in people pleasing, and it has not, therefore, been a hot period for relationships. In fact, a measurably observable trend for 2024 into the beginning of this year is there's going to be souls who chose to do the evolutionary intention of separation, individuation, and there's going to be souls who chose to regress into outworn, outdated, and what could be pathological relationship dynamics. So some people just recommitted to the man, just recommitted to abuse, just recommitted to superficial love is the shadow of Libra, looks good love, when in fact, this last year of 2024 could have really called us on not necessarily a painless initiation of healing. And what we've been healing with this last year, the North Node conjoining Chiron, has been our body, has been our sexuality, has been our will to live, our excitement, our libido, and in some way we have to rescue this phantom limb by returning to this reality that we get to trailblaze and lead and initiate and skydive and explore, and that's what Mars integrated is. It's like if something scary knocks at the window, Mars Aries is the one who's going to be the first person to instinctually jump up and check the door and make sure that we're safe and make sure that we're protected. That's what we've been collectively learning to do. In some way, shape, or form, there could have been so many initiations of separations, needing to go our own way, needing to honor our own differences. Now, as I'm speaking to you, January 2025, the ruler of the moon's north node, Mars, has recently stationed retrograde and has just now gone opposite to Pluto for the second time, now retrograde. Mars is going to go opposite to Pluto again in several months. We're talking about April into May. That's a profound rebirth that's going to be taking place later on here in May into June. Oh my God, is it such an exciting year ahead. And it's not going to stop. There's so many easy things we could say about this year, like, oh, it's going to get weird. Oh, it's going to get pioneering. Oh, it's going to get exciting. Yes, it is. And it's not going to stop in 2026 or 2027. The rocket ship is lifting off at the end of 2025. That rocket ship is not slowing down. In any of the years to come, it's going to continue to break sound barriers, light barriers, then dimensional barriers in the decades, plural, to come. These are the two most revolutionary, progressive, ingenuitive decades, plural, of our lifetime. This is the Pluto Aquarius period. The Pluto Aquarius generation has just become seeded beginning this last year through the beginning of the 2040s. This generation is going to completely reinvent our world. This generation is going to introduce an entirely new pop culture that I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up is going to be a new Dada. And if you know about the Dada art movement, it was essentially poking fun at everything that existed before it. And the generation being born now is going to poke fun at everything that ever existed before it. 10 years from now, pop culture is going to reflect this trend and is going to reflect this style with this new Dada where we're going to be looking at our history and saying, nope, I don't want to be a part of that. And guess what, Pluto Aquarius generation that may be seeing this several decades down the line, I know it may be hard to believe, but you are also connected to the past. You also have ancestors. You also are connected to this timeline of humanity. But are we going to take an incredible evolutionary leap beginning this year into the years to come? We can't even know how different things are going to be a few short years from now. That's the rocket ship. So I'm titling 2025 because the major astrology, which I will come back to, is this North Node Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And this is going to be already happening this next 30 days. We're really going to break in the North Node's entrance into Pisces in a significant way, which, by the way, throughout this next year, for those who have worked so hard to liberate themselves, come into our individuality, come into this fresh sense of being alive and getting to be on adventures and being excited to live. That's, again, the Martian blood flowing through our body again. Well, it's almost like as soon as we accomplish something, we move on to the next evolutionary step. And I know for those of you who are very much integrity souls that have been working so hard, you know exactly what I mean. It's just one thing after the next. That's real life. That is, the more aware you are, the more this reality becomes. So we've just worked so hard to individuate. I'm going to mention a solar eclipse. It's a partial solar eclipse. Will be coming up on March 29th, 2025. This is our final Aries solar eclipse. So although the North Node's moving into Pisces in the next week, couple weeks, the solar eclipse in springtime of this next year is still in Aries. So what this means is there's an in-between phase that's taking place. There still can be this individuation coming into confidence, to lead, to initiate, to go to the beat of our own drum, to way pave, to carve that path forward because we're following our gut. That's also the wisdom of Aries we've been working so hard for, to honor that animal wisdom. That wisdom of the gut is not a stupid, lesser evolved intelligence. That's a horrible bias, very misleading. You can look at someone's birth chart, say they got Jupiter in Aries. They can be so guided by their gut or this instinctual animal intelligence, it is entirely one and the same as their own higher self or intuitive self. So we never want to throw this aspect of reality, like any zodiac sign, out or say because it's the first sign it's less evolved. That's not true. That's a misnomer. You can be any sign, and it doesn't mean more or less evolved. That depends on the soul itself, which you can only know and read by making contact with in some way, shape, or form. You need more than just a birth chart to read a soul. You need a birth chart plus contact in some way, shape, or form. Could just be a recording, could be a photo, but you need to contact the soul plus the chart. Then you've got a most accurate way to understand everything better than we ever otherwise could know. That's what astrology gifts us. So to come back to 2025, this is the year of spiritual existential seeking. And I'll let you all know, this can therefore begin with a sense of lack. That's Saturn's transit of Pisces. Saturn is oftentimes where we experience lack, and then we have to do so much work in order to build. It's an extraordinarily obvious and predictable planet to pay attention to because it's just so obvious that this is where work is taking place. Therefore, is Saturn a bad guy? No, he gets a bad reputation because he's not easy, but Saturn's actually the planet of mastery. This is where the most action typically is taking place, the most irrefutable action. For example, 2020 was a Saturnarian event. There was a Jupiter-Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Saturn's sign of Capricorn. Did you get to change what was going on in 2020, or was that like steel bars, right? That's Saturn. It's 3D, it's inescapable, it's the actual time, life, body, construct that we're in. So Saturn in Pisces is seeking purpose, especially because Saturn is in a balsamic conjunction to Neptune throughout 2025. I mean, they are within 10 degrees like this whole next year. It's really something. Are we ever going to experience the balsamic phase nature? Oh my goodness, yes, this is Pisces, 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 Pisces. And what do we experience with Pisces? Aimlessness, boundarylessness, purposelessness. Some people can be way too assumptive or colorful of Pisces. Oh, it's sparkly. Oh, it's mystical. Oh, it's magical. And it's the antithesis of all the above. It's the void of total emptiness, purposelessness, and Pisces is the experience of spiritual disillusionment. Spiritual disillusionment. If there were ever a time to be experiencing spiritual disillusionment, it could very well be a Saturn-Neptune balsamic conjunction at the tail end of Pisces. This is, again, the incredibly straightforward astrology I was mentioning at the start of this video. The moon's nodes are the spinal column of the collective soul, where we are evolving by having collective experiences. So this north node conjoining Neptune and Saturn in Pisces could very well begin with a meandering, or an uncertainty, or a questioning. Who the heck is God? What is our purpose here? Can we really trust that? Can we really trust them? Are we really feeling held right now? Are we really feeling like everything's a magical synchronicity? Well, I'm going to be honest and cut straight to the heart of it. When the North Node's beginning its transit of Pisces, this is initiating the whole evolutionary direction of the next 18 months. So are we likely to begin feeling filled and inspired and creative and spiritual and mystical and synchronicities happening all the time and God's always there talking us and holding our hands? Probably not right now. You see how straightforward this stuff is? Because the whole conjoinment of Saturn and Neptune, which is not happening yet, all of 2025. I'm taking us month by month here. What we can do is North Node's going to first transit Neptune February 7th. Then the North Node transits Saturn April 21st. Then Neptune goes into Aries at the end of March. Saturn follows into Aries at the end of May. And they're going to be very, very close together when we get into July. So July is going to be a fascinating month this next year. Get ready for it. Because they both station at the first degrees of Aries. Saturn stations retrograde, stations retrograde in Aries July 13th, and Neptune stations at the beginning of July. So Saturn and Neptune are almost moving together through this next year, again, back and forth over the Aries point, which could be very well the most important point of the entire zodiac. Why? Because the Aries point is the beginning of the cycle. This is the point of death and rebirth in the zodiac. You could correlate this with the avatar of Jesus Christ, his death and resurrection. He is the avatar of the end of the Pisces age. That represents the Aries point. This is extremely, extremely powerful, poignant astrology for this total reinvention of reality through what begins as a spiritual meander. As oftentimes the sense of lack is actually what's initiating the work that we're doing. So this is a year of working to tune back into the greater good. And there's going to be this very fascinating reverberation between what we've worked so hard for. We've got to protect and preserve our own individuality because nobody is here to sacrifice themselves. That's not the same as real spiritual goodness. The true spiritual sacrifice is us offering our individuality back to the collective in a supportive, helpful, uplifting way. It's not about getting rid of our individuality through this distorted idea of ascension or, transcending the ego. In evolutionary astrology, we know this is not spiritual evolution. The evolutionary journey is first we become self-aware, we come into our individuality, which is what we're born to be. We're created by God to be a unique thing. And then that unique thing, aka the cards that we have dealt to us, we learn what that hand is dealt to us, and then we play our deck back. And where this can very much be leading us is a coming full circle from Aries, this need to defend, protect, and stand up for our own individuality, to coming full circle and giving back. 2025, the year that we come full circle. And I'm titling this year the year of spiritual existential seeking into the rocket ship's front door. Because both the beginning and the end of 2025 is incredibly exciting. And when we start to step into an entirely new existential reality, where we're beginning to feel a new sense of purpose, by connecting with the world in a way that fills us up, gives us meaning, gives us a sense of connection to something bigger than just ourselves, that's the connection of the dots. That's 2025. We begin with ourself, our individuality, the desires, the needs that we cannot squash. Why? Because it's us. It's our arms, it's our legs, it's our lungs, it's our eyes. We need all of that. Don't get rid of your eyes. You're not helping anybody. Don't chop off your hands. We need your hands on deck. And then everybody's coming back on board because it's not going to end. 2026 is the year the North Node's going to move into Aquarius. And I'm letting you know it's not going to be just 2026 because Uranus is going to enter into Gemini July 7th of this next year. All right. So let's take a look at it because this is going to be exciting. Just how I mentioned Saturn and Neptune are going back and forth over the Aries point. We're going to see Uranus go back and forth over the cusp of Taurus and Gemini. Okay, so July 7th, Uranus enters Gemini, then he's going to station retrograde. At the start of September, go back into Taurus, beginning of November, station direct. At the end of Taurus, February 4th. 2026, and then move back into Gemini once more at the end of April 2026, where Uranus is going to remain in Gemini for the years to come. Now, this is the really exciting big picture bird's eye view astrology, so let's get straight to it. This is going to start to introduce some of the most exciting, revolutionary, fast-paced, period of our lifetime. And the amount of exponential, development of technology and awareness and education and understanding is going to be at an exponentially increasing pace throughout this year, into 2026, through 2027. It's not about to slow down. Uranus, I like to affectionately refer to as Willy Wonka's Great Glass Elevator, because Uranus introduces new dimensional possibilities by shattering the ceiling of what we knew to be possible in the past. And oftentimes the future begins to come in and hit us before we even know what it is. Why? Because the future is unknown. That's why some so-called astrologers and energy forecasters have been redundant, saying, it's weird, because all they do is telephone game and copy one another. Well, weird just simply refers to the future. Of course, the future is weird. It's different. It's unknown. And to be frank, the word weird actually means fate. It's a Celtic word. So nothing wrong with weird. In fact, I'm pretty sure if we were to take a time machine into the future, into a very Aquarius age to come, and we talk to our years down the line, they're going to say that it's all about quirkiness. It's all about being weird. Who wouldn't want to be weird? Being weird means that you have come into your individuality and you're not afraid. That's, again, what we've worked so hard for. As Mars is going to go back into Cancer, this is an introverted period. And then Mars is going to station direct in March in Cancer, and then move back into Leo in April, go opposite to Pluto once more. There's an incredible rebirthing that's taking place this springtime, Northern Hemisphere. And this can be a creative rebirthing. This can be a liberation of our identity. It's a letting a cat out of the bag. It's letting our spontaneity inform us of who we are. It's getting our phantom limbs back online. It is liberating ourselves to spontaneously release our own creative essence. That's a lot of what this forthcoming year is pertaining to. What is that creative essence? What comes through you automatically? That Pisces. Pisces isn't so much about doing hard work. It's about finding out who we are, how to connect the dots between our gifts and the collective, so that way it just flows. We're doing what we're born to do. We're honoring the nature that we are, and it provides something useful back to the world. Now, while the South Node transits Virgo through the 18 months to come, all of 2025 through half of 2026, we need to make sure that we're not falling into the meaninglessness of ritual, routine, just cleaning up messes, just doing what's expected, just fixing what's broken, just fixing our body, just being as healthy as we can possibly be for ourselves in a way where we can lose our soul and lose this deeper creative purpose, or lose this connection to spirit or God or whatever you want to refer it as, because this isn't necessarily about belief. This is about being inspired. Pisces is where we become possessed by divine flow. Does any artist say, I'm going to paint the world's greatest painting and it's going to change all of humanity, and so I'm going to make that painting now? Does any musical genius say, I'm going to make a musical composition in G minor, and it's going to have half notes here and quarter notes here and B sharps here? And no musician thinks about musical composition this way. No gifted musician. Instead, a real musician, an actual, conductor or, creator of symphonies is going to wake up with it already in their head. That's Pisces. We become possessed. We become inspired by that which fills us up effortlessly, easily, and automatically. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we do nothing for the next year and a half. It means that the collective evolutionary intention of this North Node's transit of Pisces now through mid-2026 is going to be us learning as a species how to get out of our own way. How to get out of our own way. And you know what's also quite exciting about this forthcoming year? Jupiter's entrance into Cancer, which will take place on June 9th. Then Jupiter will station retrograde in Cancer November 11th, station direct in March, before moving into Leo on June 30th. Okay, so June 2025 to June 2026, Jupiter is in Cancer. And that's the nice thing about Jupiter, is he has a roughly 1-year orbit. So we get around a Jupiter transit of one zodiac sign per year. So the first half of 2025, Jupiter is completing Gemini, which is very intellectual, which is very communicative, which is about learning and sharing and being led by our curiosity into a diversity of different interests. So that way we can express ourselves in a diversity of different ways. And there's a lot of brilliance in this diversification and incredible illumination of these different interests, groups, educational opportunities. Then Jupiter moves into Cancer. June 2025 to June 2026. And this is significant because in evolutionary astrology, which is no amateur astrology, we understand that every single planet, and not just the moon, has nodes. Every single planet passes the ecliptic and forms really important signatures. And the planetary nodes of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, they take thousands of years to transit a sign. So this tells us about our collective evolution over very long periods of time. Now, interestingly, Jupiter is about to transit his own north node, who just reverberated back into Gemini. That's fascinating. I'll talk more about that in the months to come. But the north node of Jupiter is almost always in Cancer. And that's where Jupiter is going to be transiting this next year. And where we see Jupiter's north node in Cancer, the north node of Saturn in Cancer, the north node of Pluto in Cancer, this does reflect our collective evolution over many thousands of years of time. Jupiter, therefore, summer northern hemisphere 2025 to 2026 is going to be bringing in one of the most missing and needed medicines on the planet. That is emotional intelligence. That is where Mars is currently going to be retrograding, as we see Mars goes back into Cancer in the next 3 days, January 6th. And then again, Mars is going to remain there through April of this next year. So this Cancer theme is already, again, beginning of 2025, end of 2025 space. We're seeking supportive people. We're seeking where we can be emotional and be seen and be heard to be ourselves. This, again, is the completion of the North Node's transit of Aries. We've been working so hard for this, but this Mars retrograde also carries the theme of safe space. So 2025 is a profound year. It is the year of spiritual existential seeking, because especially these next few months, as the North Node transits Neptune February 7th, then transits Saturn April 21st, we are very much going to be directed into the spiritual, existential, what could at first be a crisis, what at first could be an experience of lack. But that's not the end of the day. That's to lead us back to a reconnection with what actually matters. So if we're feeling any, I'm not so sure about this, and is this really, that's actually good. We want to go into that spiritual existential exploration, because the more we go into it, in a certain sense, the more we meander, the more we're actually going to open ourselves up. There is a wisdom to openness in Pisces. The analogy is the artist's insane studio that may appear as an insane mess. There's no order. There's no forcefulness. There's no trying to open the springtime flowers prematurely. We're all going to be learning to honor process the next year and a half. We're also going to be exploring this major existential theme of perfection. Does it exist? I don't think it does. We live in a reality where imperfection carries the hidden blessing of things can eternally improve. Things can eternally evolve. So is God perfect? Is man made in the image of her, him perfect? No. Should we try to be perfect? No. Is anyone perfect? No. This is about honoring process. This is about honoring unfolding. So that way the artist can enter their insane studio and drift between the unfinished sculptures, the unfinished paintings, the diary pages, the musical notations strewn all over the floor. And depending on what that artist is feeling in any given moment, in any given day, that artist can drift between these projects. And in such a way, these projects complete themselves. Pisces is about possession. It's not about forcing a square peg through a round hole. What does the artist do when they position themselves in front of a blank canvas, which is when they're most likely to experience artist block? Do they put more pressure on their shoulders? Do they say, I've got to make the world's greatest painting. The patron's giving me $1 million. That's going to make it more impossible to paint. So it's almost the job of the artist, Saturn, to put themselves in front of the blank canvas, Neptune, and maybe they put an iPod in, maybe they start whistling a random tune, maybe they start thinking random thoughts, and somehow that paintbrush picks itself up and the painting paints itself. La, 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 la. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Pisces. Where is this dream leading you? Where does this dream want to take you? Where is this dream going to unfold? Because I'm letting you know, much like the springtime flowers, this process is going to unfold. By honoring essence, by honoring heart, by honoring compassion, which is the same as sensitivity. See, the water signs, the element of water, the zodiac signs of Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces are correlated with the divine feminine. This is our inverted triangle. These are the most sensitive signs. And it is through sensitivity that we open ourselves up to becoming inspired by the collective. But guess what? Those feelings don't necessarily have to be comfortable. We don't always get inspired by everything that's good, fluffy, nice, and sparkly. We can get inspired by the shit that pisses us off in the world. We can be inspired by the suffering of our fellow mankind. We can be inspired to reintroduce to this planet what actual emotional intelligence, what actual compassion, what actual care, and actual love is in a day and age where all the above has been forgotten. So when we see Jupiter in Cancer trine the moon's north node later on this year in August, there can be a huge influx of this specific wisdom. The wisdom of the feminine, the wisdom of the mystical, but also the wisdom of caring. And what I'm letting you know is that we live in a world where most people don't really care. Not really. Because what does care and compassion sound like? Care and compassion, the divine feminine, is sensitive to what everyone else is feeling. So the most maternal and compassionate person in the room does not feel good until everyone else in the room feels good too. This is called the Bodhisattva vow in Buddhism. Souls who have sworn to reincarnate until every soul on the planet is enlightened. That's Pisces. When people come up to me and they say, this is my last lifetime, I want to check out of here. It's like, yeah, I think we still got some time left. Because where we're actually going is towards the Bodhisattva vow. That's the real enlightenment. That's the real ascension. It's not a get the fuck out of here. It's not a be happy for my own convenience. That's the antithesis of care. And that's the world we live in, this dog-eat-dog, fight-to-survive world, is it not? Have we not heard that throughout our entire life? Can you please put your emotions on hold? Can you please compartmentalize for my own shallow comfort zone? That's not what care sounds like. That's not what compassion sounds like. Care and compassion sounds like going to the person that's suffering the most and saying, how can I help you? What do you need? I've gone through similar things as yourself. I know what that feels like. That is what empathy sounds like. That is in itself the most missing and needed medicine on the planet at this time. And Jupiter's transit of Cancer is an opportunity for us to bring more and more and more of this missing and needed medicine in. Do we all feel like we trust one another right now? Does this species feel completely safe to you right now? I'll let you know. I'll be the first to say, hell no. Oh my God, get me off this planet. If you're self-aware in this day and age, if you're an actually caring soul, you're going to have to learn self-respect, because actually caring souls are not respected for being caring. The world doesn't know what it's missing. The world doesn't know what it needs. So the world is going to grab onto caring people like an infant child starved of milk grabbing onto a nipple. But that infant child's not going to say thank you. It's not even going to see, understand, or respect the caretaker. So caretakers must see, self-initiate, respect themselves, so too come into even an opportunity to disseminate this most missing and needed medicine to the planet. Caretakers have to give heaping spoonfuls of that most missing and needed medicine to themselves first. Then it's going to spill over to the rest of the world. But what we're learning is respect. Do we trust one another? Is every single person out there feeling like your brother or sister right now? How about your own siblings? Do they feel like your own brother or sister right now? How about your own parents? How about your own family? Do they feel like much of a family? This is the day and age in which we live. Not necessarily. I think you're quite fortunate if your answer was yes. So let me pitch an idea to conclude 2025's prediction video. Again, the year of spiritual existential seeking into the rocket ship's front door. That means the rocket ship's leaving at the end of this year. So that rocket ship's going to start dimensional penetration and mind-blowing 2026 through 2027, guaranteed. We're just getting this party started. The speculation is that tens of thousands of years ago, during what was called the matriarchy, where we have all these Venus of Willendorfs all over the world, this is from the matriarchal age. The speculation is that women were regarded as gods during this time period because somehow and miraculously they birthed children. How about that? So women were actually respected for their progenital powers, their creative powers, their womb powers of death and rebirth. This is the divine feminine. Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces has everything to do with this, what's tilling over, what's moving, what's feeling, what's dying and rebirthing. You can feel the process of death and rebirth. That's what we get as human beings. So the speculation is during the matriarchy, women were regarded as gods, and the point is children were raised communally. There was no such thing, therefore, as the nuclear family. Now, can we even imagine what that day and age must have been like, where literally every other human being was our own brother or sister? I think we've come a long way since then, pretty much since mankind discovered iron. We've been in a military society. We've been nation against nations, family crest against family crest, religion against religion. And that's why we find ourselves in the collective shit show that we do now, where a whole world can be putting Jesus and the crucifix up globally, and people can't even follow what he said 2,000 years ago. All the man was speaking about was Pisces, Neptune, unconditional love. Do we have unconditional love mastered as a species? What did Jesus say? Are we going to all ascend? That's not what Jesus said. The whole world's going to ascend in a few thousand years by doing nothing. No, Jesus said, if you want to follow me, pick up your cross and follow me. And does everyone run to the cross? It's the few and far between that are the authentic spiritual souls that are doing the real work of being sensitive, grieving the collective tragedy, and then through acknowledging the actual tragedy of life, birthing the necessary medicine for this particular day, age, and circumstance. That's the real medicine. All right, so before I conclude, we must talk about the Uranus-Pluto trine, which we can see right here is going to begin September of 2025. And that's going to take us through 2026 into 2027 when the North Node's going to join Pluto in Aquarius. So trust me, ladies and gentlemen, we're not about to settle down. This rocket ship is taking off in the months and years to come. Now let me explain Trine, because as soon as Uranus goes into Gemini in July of this next year, we're going to really start to sense what this means. So let me explain this. In the mid-60s, that was the last time Uranus conjoined Pluto. And that was in the sign of Virgo. So they were both here. That's when the last Uranus-Pluto cycle began. What that means is in the mid-60s, there was a new reality being sown in seed form, as that's what a new cycle means. This is going to be Saturn and Neptune this next year. We're sowing a seed for a new ideological reality and how we're actually living and embodying that on this planet this next year. But to go back to the Uranus-Pluto cycle, mid-60s is when Uranus-Pluto conjoins together in Virgo. And this is where we saw on this planet, in the United States, for example, the hippies introducing new philosophies. It's the first time the East meets the West. There's a whole resurgence of Virgo, healing, medicines, techniques, alternative therapies. Astrology is reintroduced. We have all of these new, more alternative therapies that are just beginning to be seed sown. Now, that was met with a huge amount of resistance. Collective in the 60s. Was that the majority of people that got on that train? No, it was a fad, right? It was a fad in the 60s that came in and came out even before we even know it hit us, because the world was not ready for it yet. Well, guess what? 2025 and in 2020, what we're seeing right here is Uranus's first trine to Pluto since that conjoinment that took place in the 60s. And guess what this means, ladies and gentlemen? The new reality which certain souls were sowing seeds for in the mid-60s, Ram Dass, Timothy Leary, all of these saints and sages that were just reinventing the whole of reality as we know it. Dane Rudhyar, Jeffrey Green, etc., the founder of Evolutionary Astrology. We're going to see with this Uranus-Pluto trine, this seed is now beginning to land. This is now starting to take off in the world, and this will be incredibly pioneering, incredibly progressive. The amount of technological advancing that is indicated by Uranus entering Gemini, the most communicative, technology-oriented sign in many respects, Gemini and Aquarius. Oh my God, this is a rocket ship taking off. The technology that's going to, what we're going to be using for the rest of our lives is about to be invented in these next few years. We're talking about scientific and technological revolution. We're talking about quantum computer chips and quantum computing and AI hitting an exponential rate of progress. And there's going to be a before and an after this time period. No joke. We can already see it. We can already sense it because Pluto is already in Aquarius. But when Uranus begins to trine that Pluto, summertime of this next year through 2026, through 2027, these are going to be incredibly revolutionary years. We're talking about French Revolution. We're talking about off with their heads. We're talking about grassroots, humanitarian upheaval, people getting pissed off, people getting pushed beyond their wits. The traumas that are taking place on this planet are also increasing at an exponential rate, and those traumatic experiences are not accidental either. These traumas are to wake our species up to a brand new reality, one we've never seen, smelled, or tasted before. As we enter the age of Aquarius, which we have yet to enter, the next 2 decades of Pluto's transit of Aquarius is going to start breaking in the Aquarian age. We're talking about a whole new ideological reality. Ages rule almost our spiritual perspective, at least popular religion. So we've been in the monocropped Christian time period, not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because unconditional love is a rather important thing to understand. It's what we're actually all evolving towards at the end of the day, despite nobody being perfect. And I haven't met anyone walking on water yet. This is all a part of this forthcoming unfolding. What is true goodness? And we're evolving out of the medieval era. We're evolving out of the dark age. What was applicable in Jesus's time, is that applicable now, where there's drones flying around and we have all this technology and science is going to be making these discoveries that's going to interconnect everything, as astrology's already proven. We're going to have major breakthroughs in recognizing electromagnetism. The age of Aquarius is the age of electricity. We're all connected by it. There's going to be free energy. There's going to be all of these extraordinarily radical discoveries while humanity's hanging on the cliff edge. Are we going to make it through this evolutionary gateway? Are we going to make it through this evolutionary gateway and make it to a more utopian way of living as a species, or are we going to run it straight into the ground? And I wish I could tell you the answer, but it's not up to me. It's up to all of us. This is a collective choice. Just how each of us as individuals have choices that we make throughout our life, so how can we predict the future? Same with the whole collective of humanity. This is why Nostradamus, he's making predictions, but those are like metaphorical assumptions. Nobody can know exactly what's coming because we have choices to make as a species. This could be the most radical, liberating, humanitarian Aquarian age to come, or it could literally be an age of enslavement, of holocausts, of a matrix-like reality. And you know what? It's probably realistically going to be all the above. That's the reality of planet Earth. It's going to be the fullest spectrum of Aquarius, the very worst to the very best, all occurring simultaneously. That's why it's an incredibly overwhelming period. That's why, again, it's almost like the trauma washing machine is speeding up, but it's not an accident. It's not mere punishment. It's to break us through. Like Willy Wonka's glass elevator shattering the glass ceiling, this rocket ship wants to go up and out. And just like Willy Wonka's great glass elevator, this is not a rocket ship that merely goes in one dimension, up or down. This is going to be a rocket ship that introduces new dimensional possibilities. It's not just up or down anymore. It's not just 3 dimensions anymore. We can go lengthwise, we can go turnwise, we can go diagonal-wise, we can go miscellaneous-wise, we can go miscellaneous-wise, we can go miscellaneous-wise, we can go miscellaneous-wise, we can go miscellaneous-wise. That sounds a little silly, what I just said. Get ready for it. 2025, we're making our way to the rocket ship's front door. This rocket ship is taking off through the decades, plural, to come. Ladies and gentlemen, what's that signpost up ahead? It's not the Twilight Zone. It's the most exciting, radical, progressive, liberating decades, plural, of our lifetime. I encourage you to get on the ship, because if you're clinging on to the old, if you're clinging on to the American dream, this is going to be a really bumpy ride. We want to be willing to experiment. We want to be willing to see what is true, what is real, what's actually going to work. And even when it comes to belief systems, this can be true. There are beliefs that are healthy, beliefs that inspire us, beliefs that empower us, beliefs that allow us to offer goodness back to the world, just as beliefs could potentially be disempowering. We could lose ourselves to fear, or lose ourselves to conspiracy, or lose ourselves to superstition. This is why it's important to have a belief system that forms a healthy orientation to the whole. On that note, I'm wishing you the very best. To have a most exceptionally liberating year of 2025 to come. And don't worry if you're not fully liberated by the end of 2025. There's plenty more to come from here as well. All right, much love to you all. Let's see if I can see how to end this live stream. It's always a test. All right, here we go. I'll see y'all next week for those who are in tune. And again, if you want to learn everything that I just demonstrated, rosalilacommunity.com is where you get access to the full astrology school. That astrology school is going to become completed this next year, which means you can go at your own pace and learn everything that I just shared. And I'm excited to wrap up that one because the rocket ship's taking off and there's going to be more from there. All right, biting my tongue for now. Much love to you, and as always, take